Hi everyone, please excuse my congested voice. I'm recovering from the flu. Today we're going to be talking about HBO and BBC's trailers for His Dark Materials. The countdown is on. The show does start on November 4th, which is a Monday. So we're going to be diving into their world very soon. I did watch many trailers from both BBC and HBO just to see, because I'm a nerd, how they were different, and let's start talking about it. Let's talk about casting. The four actors that they're really pushing as the faces of the series are, of course, the actress who plays Lyra. Her name is Daphne Keane. Then we have Ruth Wilson as Mrs. Coulter. The famous James McAvoy is playing Lord Asriel. And then Lin-Manuel Miranda is playing Lee Scoresby. Serafina Pekkala is played by Ruta Gedmintas. And then Farder Coram is played by a Game of Thrones and Braveheart favorite, James Cosmo. I am super jazzed about Daphne Keane as Lyra Belacqua, or Lyra Silvertongue. I think she has a very interesting face. From everything I've seen in the trailers, it looks like she's bringing a pretty different energy than Dakota Blue Richards did in the 2007 film. She looks a little bit more expressive in the darker palette of emotions, which I think is a bit truer to the character than we saw last time. She doesn't really have the pretty childish look that Dakota Blue Richards had. We do see that Ruth Wilson is a brunette, and she does look like she has the emotional range to play someone who is both described as angelic and absolutely evil. The two actors I'm not so sure about were rightly cast are James McAvoy as Lord Asriel and Lin-Manuel Miranda as Lee Scoresby. I think Lin-Manuel Miranda obviously has the star power that would bring a lot of viewers to the show, which I'm sure BBC and HBO were thrilled about. But he doesn't have what I think Sam Elliott brought to the role of this older, kind of weathered, beaten Texan. I think James McAvoy is a terrific actor. I'm curious, Lord Asriel is always described as this man who exudes power, and James McAvoy is not a big guy. He's pretty small in build, but he does have a great intensity. I think Daniel Craig is just burned into my brain as Lord Asriel. We can clearly see from the trailers that have come out that there is quite a bit of racial diversity in the casting, which I think is fantastic. The new series seems to take place more in our world than in the world we saw in the 2007 film. The Master of Jordan College is Black. Lord Boreal, who kind of steps in as the main villain from what I can tell, is also Black. Lin-Manuel Miranda, of course, is Latinx. We have John Faw. Here we can see a shot of the Egyptians as they head to probably the Zal in the Fens, and it kind of changes the idea of what Egyptian is. Philip Pullman talks about them as though they were an ethnic minority, but it looks like this production is changing that, and I'm excited to see that. I think that's a very cool addition. The few shots that we can see of the bears are pretty cool. Here we have, of course, Yurik, Bernison, and Yofer fighting. We don't see the jaw come off just yet. I'm sure they're gonna make that pretty brutal, knowing that this is HBO. We can see that everything looks just a little bit grittier, a little bit less shiny around the edges. Jordan College, Mrs. Coulter's apartment, which is lovely and very well decorated, of course, but is also pretty soft, but not overly so. There are no pink frilly things in sight that I can tell. We see Lyra being fitted for a new dress at Mrs. Coulter's apartment. We can also see them at the Royal Arctic Institute. I love this kind of detail and this loyalty to the books, that we see her becoming the pet that Mrs. Coulter intends her to be. We also have this great shot of Lyra on an actual boat. We see her on what looks like a normal boat heading to the north. We see James McAvoy as Lord Asriel in what seems like a van, maybe, with a bunch of stuff in it. And then we see Trollesund in the north, And I love how real it looks. It looks like a dirty, kind of mangy, rough around the edges port town, which is exactly what it's supposed to be. We see Lyra wearing actual, well, probably not real furs because they'd be sued by PETA, but something that looks a little more substantial and a little bit warmer than Dakota Blue Richards wore in the film, which I am personally happy about because that was a huge pet peeve. Philip Pullman goes to these great lengths to talk about all the weird shit that Lyra's ensemble is made out of, like the seal intestines, the creepy animal bits here and there. And as a fierce vegetarian, that's not my personal jam, but if it's that cold, I get it. We also see some really cool shots of Bolvangar. We see kids who actually don't look super happy to be there. There's this weird hospital orphanage vibe to the place, which I think is dead on. And then we see the guillotine-esque blade of the severing Maystat process, which is awesome. Here are a few shots of what we can see about the Magisterium. It has a very minimal, harsh vibe, kind of equally stark and I would say masculine, which makes sense since the church has always been a patriarchal organization, to say the least. And then we see Svalbard. It looks so cool. It's got these great tusks, it's got rocks, it's got snow. It looks dangerous and it looks scary, and I think it's gonna be really cool. The alethiometer looks a bit different in this new version. It's kind of inlaid in a larger square of metal, whereas in the 2007 version it was a round object that looked more like a compass. I personally prefer the last alethiometer, and then of course the star of the show is always going to be Mrs. Coulter's golden monkey. I don't think we ever find out what his name is, but he's infamous. And in this version, they made him super realistic looking. If you Google a golden monkey, they have these very bright blue faces, which is bizarre and also strangely beautiful. He looks a little bit less insane and a little bit less emotive than the famous 2007 version did. I'm a little bit sad about that, but here is a great side-by-side comparison of the two. In the trailers, we see him already torturing at least two people's demons. This one is definitely Pan, and I'm guessing the bird is someone else's. Maybe Tony Macarios, maybe Billy Costa, or maybe another rando kid who gets plucked into the heart of the gobblers. I do want to remind everyone that the second book of Dust, called The Secret Commonwealth, came out a few weeks ago. I'm about 2/3 the way through, and it is a delight to read. As we can see, the American cover is a bit different from the British cover, but it does, I think, take us to Constantinople, i.e. Istanbul. The part that I just finished took place in Prague, so lots of cool travel, lots of moving pieces, and Philip Pullman does that weird thing that he loves to do of calling places by old or alternate names, which as a geography dork, I absolutely gobble up. So if you're missing Lyra and want to dive back into her world, the Book of Dust series is pretty great. Thanks for checking this out, guys, and we will be checking out the HBO series very soon. Get excited. Happy Halloween. It is my favorite holiday. As you can see, I have some decorations. Yeah, so thanks again. See you soon.